John Miller wiped sweat from his forehead as he fixed the old tractor on his Iowa farm. The summer sun beat down on his weathered skin. At 52, John had seen a lot in his life. 20 years in the Navy SEALs had taught him to notice things others missed. So when the birds suddenly stopped singing, he looked up. The sky changed. Not slowly like a storm coming, but all at once. A shadow passed over the cornfields. John's hand moved to his hip where he once carried a sidearm, finding only his belt loop instead. "What in the world?" he whispered. Above him, the blue summer sky darkened as something massive blocked the sun. It wasn't clouds. The shape was too perfect, too straight-edged. John had seen enough in his military days to know when something wasn't natural. This was a ship. And it wasn't from Earth. 10 miles away in the small town of Millfield, people poured out of shops and homes to stare at the sky. The local news station's phones rang non-stop. Social media exploded with photos and videos of the massive ship that now hovered over the Midwest. It wasn't just Iowa. Reports came in from all over the world. Tokyo, London, Cairo, Sydney. Massive ships appeared over every major region on Earth. They just sat there, silent and watching. 3 days passed. The ships did nothing but hover. World leaders tried to make contact, sending messages in every format scientists could think of. No response came. People began to adjust to the strange new reality of living under alien ships. Though no one went far from their homes on the fourth day, everything changed. John was in town getting supplies when all electronics suddenly stopped working. Cars died in the streets, phones went dark. Then every screen from phones to store TVs lit up with the same image, a tall, thin figure with grayish-blue skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. The alien spoke, its voice coming through every speaker. "People of Earth, we are the Xeraxian Collective. We have observed your kind for many cycles. Your world has resources we require. You have 7 rotations of your planet to surrender control of these resources. To demonstrate our power and the futility of resistance, observe." All screens switched to show a small uninhabited island in the Pacific Ocean. A beam of light shot down from one of the ships. Where the island had been, there was only steam rising from the ocean. 7 rotations, the alien repeated. "Then we collect what we need." The screens went dark. After a few minutes, power returned. People stood frozen in shock. At the United Nations in New York, an emergency meeting began within hours. Representatives from every nation gathered, many joining by video. The debate was heated. "We must show these aliens our nuclear capabilities," said one representative. "Let them know we won't surrender without a fight, and risk them destroying our cities," another shouted. "You saw what they did to that island?" Dr. Susan Clark watched the debate from her small office at the University of Minnesota. As one of the world's leading experts in theoretical alien linguistics, she had been largely ignored before the ships arrived. Now her phone wouldn't stop ringing, Susan noticed. Something about the alien message that others missed. She replayed it, studying the subtle movements of the alien's face, the timing of its words. "They're overconfident," she muttered to herself. "They think they understand us, but they don't." When the call came from Washington, Susan wasn't surprised. Within hours, she was on a military transport plane headed for the Pentagon. There, in a room filled with generals and intelligence officials, she explained her theory. "The Xeraxians think they know us because they've been watching our broadcasts, our internet, our social media," Susan said. "But they've misunderstood something fundamental about human nature." General Paul Davis leaned forward. "Which is what, Doctor?" "They think we fear death more than anything. But humans don't fear death as much as they fear being controlled. History has shown this time and again. People will risk death, even embrace it, to avoid subjugation." The room fell silent as her words sank in. "So what are you suggesting?" asked a woman in a dark suit who hadn't introduced herself. "I'm suggesting we can use their misunderstanding against them. They expect us to either surrender or launch a direct military attack. They don't expect creativity." In orbit above Earth, Commander Krell of the Xeraxian fleet watched the humans with growing satisfaction. The monitoring stations picked up increased military communications, panicked civilians, and leaders arguing with each other. "Just as predicted," Krell said to his second-in-command. "They scatter like prey animals, unable to unify when faced with superior force. Some of their military installations are showing increased activity," noted the second-in-command. Krell made a dismissive gesture with one of his four arms. "Meaningless. Our analysis of their weapons technology shows nothing capable of penetrating our shields. Their nuclear weapons would cause more damage to their own planet than to our ships. Should we perhaps shorten the time frame? Some advisors suggest the humans might use this time to organize." Krell's four eyes blinked in sequence, a Xeraxian expression of amusement. "Let them try? Our simulations give them a 0.0001% chance of mounting any meaningful resistance. Besides, I want to study their behavior as they face inevitable defeat. The psychological data will be useful for future harvesting operations." Back in Washington, a plan began to take shape. Susan's insights were combined with military strategy, creating something the aliens would never expect. Meanwhile, around the world, something remarkable happened. Old enemies shared intelligence. Nations that had been at odds for generations suddenly found common ground. A global resistance network formed, not through official channels, but through ordinary people connecting across borders. John Miller got a visit from two men in plain clothes, who knew about his military background. They didn't say much, just gave him a special phone and told him to be ready. In her university office, now empty as classes had been suspended, Susan Clark worked through the night analyzing every second of the alien transmission. She found patterns, subtle clues about Xeraxian psychology. "They're collectivists," she told General Davis over a secure line. "They think as one unit. They cannot comprehend our individuality, our unpredictability. They see it as chaos, as weakness." "How do we use that?" Davis asked. Susan smiled for the first time since the ships arrived. "We show them just how unpredictable humans can be." As the first of the 7 days passed, the Xeraxians watched with growing confidence as humans appeared to fall into panic and disarray. What they failed to understand was that beneath the surface, humanity was uniting as never before, and they were getting ready to show these aliens exactly why it was a mistake to threaten Earth. Commander Krell recorded in his log, "The humans behave exactly as our simulations predicted. Their surrender is inevitable." It would be the last confident entry he would make. The old mining bunker beneath the Wyoming mountains had been empty for decades. Now it buzzed with activity. General Frank Johnson walked through the repurposed space, his footsteps echoing on the concrete floor. At 65, Frank had been enjoying retirement until 3 days ago when a helicopter landed on his Montana ranch. "We need someone who thinks differently," the president had told him over a secure line. "Someone the aliens won't know about." Frank stopped at a large table where Dr. Susan Clark studied alien transmission patterns. Next to her, Alan Wright, a 30-year-old former hacker who now worked for the NSA, typed furiously on a keyboard. Across from them, Kelly Martinez checked equipment diagrams. Before the aliens came, Kelly had been training for a mission to the International Space Station. "Tell me we have something," Frank said. Susan looked up from her work. "The Xeraxians communicate on frequencies we can track. They're talking constantly to each other, very confident." She pushed her glasses up. "Too confident," Alan nodded. "They think they know everything about us from our digital footprint. Social media, TV shows, news," he smiled. "But they don't know about our hidden systems, the old Cold War networks we never put online. Can we use that?" Frank asked. "Already am," Alan replied. "I'm feeding them false information through channels they're monitoring, making it look like governments are falling apart faster than they actually are." Frank turned to Kelly. "What about your team?" Kelly's face was serious. "My astronauts are ready. If the Xeraxians are watching our visible launch sites, they won't be looking for a small team launching from an old oil platform in the Gulf." Frank nodded. The plan was dangerous, perhaps impossible, but they had no choice. "Keep working. Day 2 is almost over." On the main Zyraxian ship, Commander Krell received an update. Human governments are breaking down faster than projected. His information officer reported, their military leaders argue among themselves. Some human factions are already offering to help us in exchange for special treatment. Krell's mouth parts curved in what passed for a smile among his kind. Extend the deadline by 3 more rotations. I want to study this collapse. It will help us with future harvests on similar worlds. Is that wise, Commander? Some analysts suggest, I make the decisions, Krell interrupted. The humans are no threat. Their panic only confirms our predictions. The message about the extended deadline went out worldwide. On the surface, it seemed to cause more chaos. Countries accused each other of secret deals with the aliens. Protests broke out in major cities, but in hidden places around the world, the news was received differently. In his Iowa farmhouse, John Miller got a message on his special phone. 3 more days. Good. He looked at the people gathered in his barn, neighbors, former military, even a science teacher from the local high school. They had been building something that no satellite or alien ship would recognize as a weapon. We have more time, John told them. Let's make it count. In Japan, Dr. Henry Tanaka made a breakthrough in his lab beneath Tokyo University. The Zyraxian biosignatures show a weakness, he told his team. Their hearing range extends far beyond ours. Certain frequencies cause them physical pain. This information traveled through the hidden human network. Reaching the Wyoming bunker within hours, Susan immediately saw the value. If we can broadcast these frequencies through their own communication systems, double quote. Alan finished her thought. We could disable their crews without destroying the ships. In orbit, the Zyraxians continued their observations, puzzled by some patterns, but still confident. They noticed increased activity at religious sites across the planet. The humans turned to their imaginary gods, an analyst told Krell, a clear sign of acceptance of their fate. Krell added this to his report to the Zyraxian High Command. The target species responds to inevitable defeat by seeking comfort in superstition. What the Zyraxians didn't understand was that churches, mosques, temples, and synagogues had become meeting points for resistance cells, places where plans could be shared without electronic surveillance. The prayers where real humans facing a great challenge naturally sought spiritual strength, but these gatherings served a dual purpose. By the 5th day, unusual weather patterns began appearing on Zyraxian scanners. Small storms formed and dissipated quickly around the globe. Analyze these weather anomalies, Krell ordered. His science officer studied the data. Nothing concerning. Minor atmospheric disturbances, likely caused by our ship's presence in the lower atmosphere. The weather was actually a test of thousands of small devices built in garages and basements around the world. Mary Peterson, the high school physics teacher working with John Miller, had designed a way to create localized electromagnetic pulses that could temporarily disrupt Zyraxian short-range scanners. The tests were kept small and random to avoid raising suspicion. In Wyoming, Frank Johnson received updates from across the globe. The pieces were falling into place. Kelly Martinez and her team had secretly launched and were now in position, hidden in the shadow of a decommissioned satellite. The Zyraxians scan for active power sources, Kelly reported over a secure channel. Our suits are cold. They don't see us. Frank turned to Susan. Are they still buying our act? Susan nodded. They believe we're falling apart. Their communications show they've even lowered their alert status. They think the extension of the deadline has broken human resolve. Alan looked up from his screens. They're preparing collection ships. Small vessels designed to land and gather resources. Less heavily armored than the main fleet. That's our window, Frank said. When those ships deploy, they'll be vulnerable. He looked at the countdown clock on the wall. 1 more day of making them think we're weak. Then we show them what humanity can really do. Across the earth, millions of people waited for the signal. Ordinary men and women with extraordinary courage prepared to fight for their planet. The Zyraxians watched their screens, seeing what appeared to be a civilization in collapse, never suspecting that beneath the surface, Humanity had united as never before. Commander Krell made his final preparations, certain of victory, unaware that his fundamental misunderstanding of human nature was about to cost his people dearly. The Zaraxians had judged humanity by its divisions and emotional nature. They were about to learn that these apparent weaknesses were in fact humanity's greatest strength. The sixth day dawned with an eerie calm across the planet. In homes and hidden places, humans waited. On the Zaraxian command ship, Commander Krell prepared for the resource collection phase with complete confidence. "Begin deployment of harvester ships," Krell ordered. "Start with the areas showing least resistance." Massive bay doors opened on the underside of each mothership hovering over Earth. Smaller vessels emerged, each the size of a football field, descending toward the surface. Their first targets were remote areas rich in minerals and water. One such harvester approached John Miller's part of Iowa from his farmhouse window. John watched it come, a dark shape blocking the morning sun. He picked up his special phone and pressed a single button. No words were needed. Across his region, similar signals were being sent. In the Wyoming bunker, Frank Johnson watched as the global map lit up with hundreds of signals. "They're taking the bait," he said. "All harvesters are deploying to the designated areas." Susan Clark and Alan Wright monitored the Zaraxian communications. "Their guard is down," Susan confirmed. "They're not expecting any resistance," Frank nodded grimly. "Send the go code." In space, Kelly Martinez received the signal. Her team of 6 had been hiding for nearly 24 hours in the shadow of an old weather satellite. Below them, a Zaraxian support vessel maintained position over North America. "This is it," Kelly told her team through the comm system in their suits. Remember, their ship wasn't designed for internal defense. They never expected anyone could reach them up. Here, using small thrusters, the astronauts pushed away from their hiding spot and drifted toward the alien vessel. Their approach was slow and deliberate, staying in the ship's sensor blind spots that Alan had identified. When they reached the hull, they used tools designed for space station repairs to cut through an external maintenance panel. The Zaraxian metal was tough but yielded to the specialized equipment. On Earth, the first harvester ships touched down. One landed in a cleared area near John Miller's farm. As its doors opened and ramp extended, there was no sign of humans anywhere. The Zaraxian crew scanned the area, detecting no immediate threats. "Begin resource extraction," the harvester captain ordered. The moment the Zaraxians activated their extraction equipment, it happened. From barns, storm cellars, and hidden bunkers, ordinary people emerged. They carried strange devices built from modified farm equipment, kitchen appliances, and spare electronics parts. Mary Peterson's frequency disruptors were activated simultaneously across the globe. The high-pitched sound was beyond human hearing but hit the Zaraxians like a physical blow. On every harvester ship, alien crew members clutched their hearing organs. Disoriented and in pain, inside the Zaraxian support vessel orbiting Earth, Kelly and her team made their way through narrow maintenance tunnels. The ship's design confirmed Susan's theory. The Zaraxians had evolved beyond physical confrontation. There were no internal security systems, no armed guards. Their entire defense strategy relied on preventing enemies from reaching their ships in the first place. "We're approaching their communication hub," Kelly whispered, though there was no need for silence. The Zaraxians couldn't hear them through their suits, and the aliens were now too distracted by what was happening on Earth. On the command ship, chaos erupted as reports flooded in from harvesters across the planet. "We are under attack. Unknown frequency weapon. Cannot maintain function." Krell stared at the incoming data in disbelief. "Impossible! Their weapons technology is primitive." He turned to his second-in-command. "Deploy security forces to all harvesters." "The harvester crews are incapacitated by some kind of sonic weapon," the officer replied. "And we're detecting thousands of small aerial objects approaching our ships." These weren't military aircraft. They were crop dusters, private planes, even modified civilian drones. Each carried makeshift weapons designed by people like Mary Peterson and built by local communities. Some released clouds of particles that clogged the harvester's intake systems. Others dropped devices that attached to the ship's hulls, transmitting the disruptive frequencies directly through the metal dot in Japan. Dr. Henry Tanaka led a team that approached a harvester in small boats. When the Xeraxians had landed near Tokyo Bay, they'd expected to extract minerals from the seabed. Instead, they found their systems compromised by devices the humans attached to their ship below the WALIN. Commander Krell struggled to understand what was happening. How are they coordinating this? We've been monitoring all their communication channels. What Krell didn't know was that humans had used methods of communication the Xeraxians never considered: church bells ringing in patterns, reflected sunlight signals, even runners carrying messages on foot. Low-tech solutions that were invisible to high-tech surveillance. On the support vessel, Kelly's team reached the communication hub. The room was staffed by only 3 Xeraxians, all distracted by the crisis unfolding below. When the humans entered, in their bulky spacesuits, the aliens were too shocked to react immediately. Kelly moved quickly, attaching a device Alan had designed to the main console. "Uplink established," she reported through her secure channel to Wyoming. In the bunker, Alan's fingers flew across his keyboard. "I'm in their system," he announced. "Accessing their fleet communication protocols now." Susan leaned forward. "Ken, you broadcast Henry's disruptive frequency through their own communication systems?" Alan grinned. "Already on it." Throughout the Xeraxian fleet, every communication device suddenly emitted the painful frequency. Ships that hadn't yet been attacked were suddenly filled with incapacitated crew members. On his farm in Iowa, John Miller led his neighbors in a direct assault on the landed harvester. With the alien crew disabled by the sonic weapons, the humans entered the ship and secured it using nothing more sophisticated than ropes and determination. Similar scenes played out across the globe. The Xeraxians, who had expected either complete surrender or conventional military attacks, had no defense against this distributed grassroots resistance. Commander Krell, fighting through the pain of the sonic attack, made a desperate decision. "Prepare the main weapon array. Target their major population centers. We will not be humiliated by a primitive species." But as he gave the order, his weapons officer stared at the control panel in confusion. "The targeting systems aren't responding, Commander." On the support vessel, Kelly watched as Alan remotely locked down the Xeraxian weapon systems. "Phase 1 complete," she reported. "Moving to Phase 2. Frank Johnson received the update in Wyoming. He turned to the others in the bunker. "It's working. Now for the hard part." He picked up a secure line to the President. "Madam President, we're ready for the diplomatic approach." Around the world, humans gained control of harvester ships one by one. The Xeraxian fleet, which had arrived so confident in their superiority, now found themselves paralyzed and vulnerable. The species that had dismissed humanity as weak and divided was learning a harsh lesson about underestimating Earth's inhabitants. Commander Krell's ship shuddered as another system failed. Warnings flashed across control panels throughout the bridge. His crew looked to him for answers he didn't have. "How is this possible?" Krell demanded, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly. "In distress, their technology is centuries behind ours." His science officer, struggling to stay focused through the painful sonic attack, checked the readings. "Commander, they aren't using advanced technology. They're using our own systems against us." On the support vessel, Kelly Martinez and her team had secured the communication hub. 2 more astronauts had joined them, having boarded the ship from another approach vector. They worked quickly, following the plan developed in the Wyoming bunker. "We need to reach the main propulsion control room," Kelly said. "According to the schematics Alan pulled from their database, it's 2 levels down." The team moved through the ship, encountering confused and disoriented Xeraxians along the way. The aliens, stunned by the sonic frequencies and shocked by the presence of humans on their vessel, offered little resistance. In Iowa, John Miller and his group had fully secured the harvester that landed near his farm. They discovered something unexpected inside. The ship was designed not just to collect minerals and water, but biological samples as well. Containment units lined one section of the vessel, clearly meant for capturing and preserving living specimens. They weren't just after our resources, John told Frank Johnson over the secure line. They were planning to take some of us too. Similar reports came in from other captured harvesters around the world. The Xeraxians had intended to collect humans for study and possibly experimentation. In the Wyoming bunker, Susan Clark pieced together a more complete picture of the Xeraxian plan. They harvest inhabited worlds systematically, she explained to the president and military leaders. They take resources, biological samples, and then move on. They've done this many times before, but they've never encountered resistance like ours, Frank added. The president's face was grim on the video screen. Can we communicate directly with their leadership now? Alan nodded. We control their main communication systems. We can broadcast whatever message you want. On the command ship, Krell was organizing a final desperate measure. Prepare the self-destruct sequence, he ordered. If we cannot complete our mission, we will deny these primitives access to our technology. His second-in-command hesitated. Commander, the High Command will want to know how we failed. If we destroy the fleet, there will be no record of what happened here. Better that than letting a primitive species learn our secrets, Krell snapped, before the self-destruct could be initiated. A new voice came through the ship's communication system. It was the President of the United States speaking in calm, measured tones. Commander Krell of the Xeraxian fleet. This is the leader of one of Earth's nations. We have control of your harvester ships and your weapon systems. Your crew members are being detained but treated humanely. We propose a peaceful resolution to this conflict. Krell stared at the communication screen in disbelief. How do you know my name? How are you accessing our secure channels? The president continued. We are not the primitive, disorganized species you believed us to be. Humanity has a unique strength. We adapt. When threatened, we put aside our differences and unite. This is something your simulations failed to predict. In the support vessel's propulsion control room, Kelly's team had gained complete access to the ship's systems. We have control of the entire support fleet, she reported to Wyoming. We can move their ships if needed. Frank relayed this too. The president, who incorporated into the ongoing communication with Krell. Your ships are now under our control, the president told the Xeraxian commander. We have no desire to destroy your fleet or harm your people. We offer you a choice, peaceful departure or forced removal. Krell's forearms gestured in agitation. This is impossible. No species has ever resisted a Xeraxian harvest. Our technology is impressive, the president acknowledged. But technology alone isn't enough. You failed to understand the human spirit. While this conversation continued, Dr. Henry Tanaka made another discovery in a captured harvester in Japan. The Xeraxians' biological systems are vulnerable to common Earth bacteria, he reported to the Wyoming bunker. Their suits protect them, but they have no immunity to our world. Susan relayed this information to the president, who used it as additional leverage. Commander Krell, we've also discovered that your species has no resistance to Earth's microbial environment. If your crew members remain here, many will become ill. Another reason for a prompt departure. On the Xeraxian command ship, reality was finally setting in. The harvesting mission had failed completely. Worse, the humans now had access to Xeraxian technology and knowledge. What are your terms? Krell finally asked, his voice subdued. The president's response was firm but fair. You will recall all your forces immediately. You will release any biological samples you've collected. You will provide data on all worlds you've previously harvested. In return, we will release your captured ships and crew once your fleet has left our solar system. In homes and communities across Earth, people watched and listened as the exchange was broadcast globally. After days of fear and uncertainty, a new feeling spread: pride. Humanity had faced its greatest threat and prevailed not through superior technology, but through cooperation, creativity, and courage. John Miller sat on his porch, the special phone still in his hand. watching as the harvester ship near his farm was surrounded by military vehicles that had finally arrived. The regular army was taking over from the civilian resistance fighters. "They really didn't understand us at all, did they?" said Mary Peterson, the physics teacher who had designed the sonic weapons. She sat next to John, exhausted but smiling. John shook his head. "They saw our arguing and thought we were weak. They saw our emotions and thought we were irrational. They never realized those things make us strong." In orbit, Kelly's team continued to hold the support vessel while Xeraxian crew members were evacuated to the command ship. Kelly floated to a viewport and looked down at Earth, peaceful and blue below them. "We should get some kind of space medal for this," joked one of her team. Kelly smiled. "I think saving the world is its own reward." In the Wyoming bunker, Frank Johnson, Susan Clark, and Alan Wright watched as data streamed in from the captured Xeraxian ships. The aliens had visited hundreds of worlds, harvested their resources, and sometimes collected biological specimens. Earth was the first planet to successfully resist. "We need to warn the other worlds they might target next," Susan said. Alan nodded. "With their technology, we can do more than warn them. We can help them." Frank looked at the young hacker and the xenolinguist. "One thing at a time. Let's make sure the Xeraxians actually leave first." On the command ship, Commander Krell prepared to address the Xeraxian High Command. He would have to explain how a supposedly primitive species had defeated their advanced fleet. How could he make them understand that the very traits the Xeraxians had dismissed as weaknesses, human emotion, individuality, and adaptability, had proven to be Earth's greatest strengths? As the Xeraxian ships began to power up their engines for departure, humanity watched and waited. The aliens had misjudged them and paid a heavy price for that mistake. But this wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of humanity's journey to the stars. 1 year passed since the Xeraxian fleet departed Earth's solar system. The world had changed in ways no one could have imagined before the aliens came. John Miller walked through his cornfield on a warm summer day. His farm looked much the same as before, except for the small research building at its edge. Scientists from around the world came to study the harvester that had landed on his property. It was one of 20 ships that humans had kept as part of the final agreement with the Xeraxians. A car drove up the dirt road to his house. John recognized it and smiled. Dr. Susan Clark stepped out carrying a tablet computer. "Good to see you?" "Doc," John called. "What brings you all the way to Iowa?" Susan smiled. "We're ready for the test today." "Thought you might want to be there since it all started here," John nodded. The test was something the whole world had been waiting for. Using technology reverse-engineered from the Xeraxian ships, humans had built their first faster-than-light probe. In Wyoming, the old mining bunker had expanded into a massive underground complex. The United Earth Defense Council headquarters now stretched for miles beneath the mountains. General Frank Johnson, now officially out of retirement, walked through the bustling control center. "Status report," he said to Alan Wright, who had become the head of Earth's new Technological Intelligence Division. Alan looked up from his workstation. "All systems are go. The probe is ready for launch." Frank nodded. "And our special passenger?" "Secured and ready." Alan confirmed. The passenger was a message pod containing data crystals with information for other worlds that might face Xeraxian harvesting fleets. It included defensive plans, technical specifications for the sonic weapons, and a warning about the aliens' true intentions. In orbit above Earth, Kelly Martinez floated inside the command module of humanity's Hope, Earth's first true spaceship. Built using a combination of human engineering and Xeraxian technology, it housed the launch bay for the FTL probe. "Launch control, this is Commander Martinez." "We are in position and ready for deployment," she reported. On screens around the world, billions of people watched the historic moment. In just 1 year, humanity had advanced centuries beyond what would have been possible without the alien encounter. The United Nations in New York, world leaders gathered to witness the launch. The President of the United States addressed the assembly. "Today we take our first step into the wider galaxy not as conquerors, but as protectors. The Zaraxians misjudged us. They saw our differences as weakness. They never understood that our greatest strength lies in our diversity of thought, our creativity born from countless perspectives, and our unity in the face of threats. In a secure room beneath the UN building, Commander Krell watched the proceedings. After the Zaraxian defeat, he had chosen to remain on Earth as an ambassador and advisor. The Zaraxian High Command had been shocked by the failure of their harvesting mission and wanted to understand what had gone wrong. "Your species continues to surprise me," Krell said to Dr. Henry Tanaka, who stood beside him. In the past year, the alien had learned to speak English, though his four-eyed face still couldn't express human emotions. Henry nodded. "That's our nature. We adapt, we improvise, we overcome." The High Command believed that emotional species were inherently inferior, Krell said. That logic and uniformity were the path to advancement. "Your world has forced us to reconsider many assumptions." On the massive screen in the UN chamber, Kelly's voice came through clearly. "Initiating launch sequence in 10, 9, 8. Around the world, people held their breath. In his Iowa field, John Miller stood next to Susan, watching on her tablet. Double quotes. 3, 2, 1, launch. From the Humanity's Hope, a small probe shot out, its engines glowing blue. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then a flash of light, and the probe was gone, traveling faster than light toward a distant star system that the Zaraxian records indicated would be the next harvest target. In the Wyoming Control Center. Cheers erupted. Alan pumped his fist in the air. It worked. Telemetry shows successful transition to FTL speed. Frank allowed himself a rare smile. Send word to all stations. Project Lighthouse is a success. In New York, the UN erupted in applause. The President continued her speech. Today marks a new chapter for humanity. We have taken our place among the stars. And we carry with us not just our hopes and dreams, but our commitment to protect other worlds from the fate we narrowly avoided. In the secure room, Krell's four eyes blinked in sequence. "You are not what my people expected. We have harvested 100 worlds, and none responded as Earth did." "What will your people do now?" Henry asked. "Will they stop the harvesting?" Krell's head tilted slightly. "The High Command is divided. Some believe we should avoid Earth and similar worlds. Others want to develop new approaches to overcome your defenses." "That would be a mistake," Henry said simply. Krell nodded. "I have told them the same." 6 months later, John Miller stood in his field again, this time watching a different kind of launch. The harvester that had landed on his farm had been converted into Earth's first colony ship. Volunteers from around the world would travel to a habitable planet discovered in Zaraxian records, establishing humanity's first off-world settlement. Susan stood beside him again. "Hard to believe it's only been a year and a half since they arrived," John nodded. "They thought they were coming to harvest a weak, divided species. Instead, they woke up the neighborhood protector." Susan smiled. "The probe reached the Tanari system last month. The inhabitants there were already preparing for the Zaraxian arrival. Our warning and technology arrived just in time." In orbit, Kelly Martinez prepared to command the colony ship on its historic journey. Earth had already sent probes to 12 systems, warning potential victims of the Zaraxian harvests and providing defensive technology. In the Wyoming complex, now expanded to include the Earth Space Academy, Frank Johnson addressed the first class of space cadets. The aliens misjudged humanity. They saw our emotions as weakness. They saw our diversity as division. They saw our individual thinking as chaos. What they failed to understand was that these are the very things that make U.S. strong. Alan, now working on the next generation of FTL drives, looked up from his workstation at the graduation ceremony on his screen. In just 80 months, humanity had advanced more than they might have in a century without the alien encounter. Commander Krell, now permanently stationed on Earth as part of the peace treaty, watched human children playing in a park near the UN building. They had made a game of the alien invasion, taking turns being humans or Zaraxians. The Zaraxian players always lost, which Krell found both amusing and instructive. They do not fear us anymore, he observed to Henry, who had become his friend and guide to human culture. Fear was never our strongest emotion, Henry replied. Hope is stronger. Curiosity is stronger. Compassion is stronger. As the colony ship departed Earth carrying the seeds of humanity to the stars, the message was clear. The aliens had misjudged humanity and paid the price. But in doing so, they had inadvertently helped launch a new guardian in the galaxy, a species that would use its unique strengths to protect others from the fate they had nearly suffered. In his farmhouse that night, John Miller looked up at the stars. They didn't seem distant and unreachable anymore. They looked like destinations, like future homes, like hope.